Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattva Bodho Bhidiyate. Okay, let's re-engage with the causal body. And we have talked about the three sets. And these three sets are there for our knowledge that enables us to perform a discriminative inquiry of the nature of reality, so that we put things in the right place. And this putting things in the right place, the text is helping us by pointing out what is it that we are putting in the right place. We have to be very specific about that. And so we were specific about the physical body. We were specific about the subtle body. The physical body was the Sthula Sharira, subtle body was the Sukshma Sharira, and we were specific, I'll be a little bit more specific now, about the Karana Sharira, the causal body. The causal body, just the word causal indicates that it is the cause of the other two bodies. In fact, it says, where is it? Sharira Dvayasya. So Sharira Dvayasya it's the cause of the Sthula and the Sukshma Sharira. And why is it the cause? Because we discussed last week, the individual gets born in this world with an innocent sense of limitation. And this limitation causes the individual to look for things, objects in the world for a sake of fulfillment, to gain some sense of completion. It's normal. It's the society's way of conduct. And it is, in fact, a friend calls you up and says, hey, come over, and you say, sure, I need some advice, or they say, come over and I feel down. And then so you two connect together, and you do that. Why? Do you do that for their sake, or you do that for your sake? You do that for your sake. So you know that by going to a certain event, a social event, a certain party, or whatever it is, being there, if you in your conclusion conclude that being there will help to alleviate me, or another way put, help to manage my sense of limitation that I feel, then I will go through certain measures to gain that objects. And sometimes those measures can require a lot of investment, time and energy, such as booking a ticket, going and taking some extreme, some actions such as bungee jumping or jumping out of an airplane, right? All of this has a reason behind it. And so the question is, what is compelling one to go through so many extremities just to get that moment of relief? What is that drive, and how powerful can that drive be to actually risk someone's life, knowing fully well what's involved and what are the chances of something going wrong? And despite all of that reason being there, this drive compels one to still go and pursue something that is seemingly worthwhile. So this drive then has to be so powerful that it's willing to risk your life. And what is this drive? This drive can only be one common, universally accepted drive, which is, in one language, we call this love. In another language, we call this sense of connection or belonging. Another language, we call this fulfillment. In another language, we call this completeness. In another language, we say this is absence of sense of limitation. These are all different expressions pointing and letting us know that if one is going through so many extreme measures through whatever age arises, then it indicates that every human being by nature has to be looking for something that is one and the same. And this one and the same is, in our language, we say, a sense of fully being filled, a sense of being fully filled. At least momentarily, I am fully filled. Now, this fully filled demands actions on your part, And these actions, as we said last week, call for drishta and adrishta palam. Sometimes they are immediately known, and sometimes there's a delay factor that's called adrishta between the time that you put out an action and you actually receive a result. Now, whether that consequence, that compensation is one of pleasantness or unpleasantness, that is really the product of the kind and the quality of investment and intention that the action has been put into the world. So the intention dictates the kind of result or consequence or compensation that you receive. For example, you can have two people. For one of them, they both give charity, but for one person, the charity intention behind it is name and fame, to put it on a resume and to be a worthwhile a human being that is giving to the world, and to put that in one's resume or their write-up or their biography about themselves. The other person gives out of an entirely different intention, and that is because they see these people have a vision, and this vision, it remains suppressed, it remains unheard, and it gives me joy to let them the opportunity for this vision to flourish itself. It gives me joy to at least know that my contribution has allowed them for this vision to flourish, if at all. Doesn't matter how, but if at all. Even if a little bit, then I am happy enough. And this vision has nothing to do with the external world. It has to do with that individual who needs those funds over there. So the intention is very different from another. And therefore, the laws, the intelligence, Ishvara, the Lord, it captures your intention. And the capturing of the intention is the kind of quality of this punya papam that we discussed last week that you receive in the sometime in the future. The sometime in the future, as we remember, is the word adrishta, unseen. Okay, so it's the intention that is behind the action that really is what's the kind of experience you will have in life. Okay, so therefore it is the cause of the subtle and the physical body, because in order to enjoy, to express, to engage in the world with an idea that you think will give you fulfillment, for that you need a what? A physical and a subtle body. Okay, so everyone has an idea. One person has an idea what's going to give fulfillment. Another person is going to have another idea what's going to give fulfillment. But so they're both ideas, but both ideas, whether they're noble or ignoble, they both require what? Right. They both require an instrument capable of finding itself in a world which is able to provide those kinds of objects that will satisfy or make the person at least feel fulfilled for a moment. Therefore, the world being physical in nature, you need to be given a physical body to participate with the physical world. And even if you're not given a physical world, bhavano, then you're given we could say, a heavenly kind of world. This is a world which has a subtle nature, a subtle kind of nature, which whether it requires a physical body or not, it's just a different kind of matter, a different kind of density of matter that it requires. For example, in heaven, right, we say, people there's so much enjoyment there. Well, let me just give you an idea what this means. In this physical world, can you fly? Can you walk through a wall? No. Why? Because there are physics that are operating, which we cannot come outside of. Yeah. Now, in the heaven, the physics are still there, but they're different in nature, because not that they're different, but they're still, in fact, I don't know what heaven is like. No one's been up there to write down and come back down, but the physics are there. But because you have a different kind of body, you're able to do a lot more than with this kind of physical body where you have one little cut and it's over. Already a hospital is needed. So a different kind of body allows you to live or have a different kind of experience because the matter composition is different. Therefore, the person is able to, I'm just saying, walk through a wall, fly, not experience a sense of hunger. All of this is because the physical body doesn't demand those kinds of things. But the point is, it is still a physical body given. Why? Because of the causal body. That's why the causal body is the cause of the physical and the subtle bodies, which means that as long as the causal body is there, what's going to happen? As long as the eye is placed in the causal body, what's going to happen? You will get a physical and a subtle body one way or the other. Okay. Yes, Paul.
So I wanted to bring in Shakespeare's famous line. He said, the spirit which gives a local habitation and a name.
Sorry, can you repeat that again? I didn't hear.
A local habitation and a name. He said it in As You Like It, the famous drama. Probably Shakespeare stumbled upon the causal body taking a physical form when he referred to that. He just called it poetically thoughts being given a local habitation and a name.
Thoughts have been given. Right. A local.
Just a poetic. I thought about those lines. That's all.
Right. Have been given a local
habitation
and a name. Yeah, it's actually wonderful. Local. They're being localized. Yeah. They're being localized. They're inhibiting an instrument that's letting those habits, those samskaras, play out in a way that those samskaras imply. Those samskaras could be implying a need for knowledge. So therefore, I need a body that has the eyes, that has the mind, that's capable of absorbing the knowledge and thinking about that knowledge. You need a mind to think about knowledge. So even if your eye is placed in knowledge, still you need a physical body and a subtle body to get that.
Name it a form.
Name and a form. Excellent.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question, Andre.
Elizabeth, I think.
Yeah. You just mentioned earlier about intention. And from my understanding, the causal body is the storehouse or the repository of lifetimes and infinite lifetimes of karma.
Yeah.
Punya, which is the good dharmic deeds that we've done. And Papa, which are the negative or bad deeds that we've done. So to what standard do we hold ourselves to when we're thinking about what is a good deed or what is a bad deed? Because you just talked about intention. And so if you think about like good and bad, it's not black or white. It's very nuanced and it's very, I think, sometimes quite complicated. So you might have someone, like you said earlier, who does a good deed, like they give money to the poor or they donate to charity, but their intention is actually very selfish. So the action itself is good, but the intention is not pure. Or conversely, you might have someone who actually has a good intention, like a mother who loves their children and suffocates them and, overly takes care of them. And then in the end, they become rebellious and end up doing bad things as an adult. And so the intention was good, but the action ended up harming the child. And so to what measure who is measuring us, or what standard is measuring what is good and what is bad? Is it the intention? Is it the harm, or is it the impact?
Okay, good. So the intention is a product of how much am I in tune with the natural program called Dharma. And Dharma is a program that everyone comes inbuilt at the time of birth. It is the same program that makes you want, Elizabeth, to connect, to belong, to feel a sense of unity, to not feel separated or excluded or judged or hurt. So this is a natural program that we all have called Dharma, which is split into two little terms that I want to explain to answer this question. When I say dharma, there are two kinds of dharma. The first one is samanya dharma. Samanya dharma. These are, Elizabeth, the universal ethical values that everyone understands. Even animals understand this. Like there's a lion a pride of lions, and the lion protects their lionesses, and he wants to protect them, right? As some invader comes up, some antelopes or some whatever, a buffalo or a hippo comes over, and so he wants to now protect his pride. So there's a sense of protection or non-injury that is dominant in all human beings, in all living species, that is universally understood as I don't want to hurt you and I don't want to hurt myself. Nobody needs to read this in their books and study this in school. It is inbuilt and it's deeply rooted in the psyche of every human being. What happens though is this samanya dharma then gets confused with the second definition of dharma, which is swadharma. This is your personal duty. So samanya dharma is universal ethical values that we all understand of non-injury, love, unity, connectedness, preserving that connection, that nurturing, creating a space for where growth can happen, ensuring that there is a harmony throughout the region, throughout the nation, throughout the country, in your family, in your own mind. What is it that makes you always revert back to harmony? This is getting out of hand. And then when it gets out of hand, in reference to what? Think about it. How do you know that your mind is getting out of hand? Does that not imply that there is a yardstick, a measuring stick, that it's in reference to something that you always want to return to? You understand? My mind's getting out of hand. Why is it getting out of hand? Because in reference to that which is what I want to return to, which is a state of harmony. What we call this samanya dharma, that equilibrious state of mind where you're able to function. You feel good about yourself and you feel good about the world. You feel good about everything. Now, swadharma, what happens, this is your personal duty. This is what am I to do in this situation? What am I to do in this setting right now? Now, what happens is our own pressures come in from different parts of, could be unassimilated, could be things that we push down under the carpet. It's sometimes as children, often because we're unable to cope with something that's so huge, so over our head. So what we do is we just, for the sake of safety, we push it aside because it's too much to handle. So all of these unconscious, unresolved events, they bubble up and they manifest, they percolate through our personality as pressures. And these pressures then cause one to compromise what they believe, or not what they believe, but what they feel is to be the right course of action. So, for example, the child sees their mom and dad fighting, and the dad controls his mom. And this is what the child sees. And he says, well, if they both love each other, then love is control. So this is what the child picks up. So when the child then grows up, he gets together with the opposite partner, and to express his love, which is that sense of unity, connectedness, harmony, preserving the well-being of both yourself and the other, ensuring that there is decent space for growth to flourish, that gets misinterpreted in the light of what I have not resolved long time ago, which is, in order to give love, I need to make sure that everything stays according to how I think things should be, because this is what I learned from my dad. And therefore, control, dominating behavior comes up, and then not understanding that I'm doing something wrong, it produces a conflict from the other side. The other side gives me an opposing view, and I think, well, this is not how my mom acted. My mom was just submissive towards my dad, and my wife is not being submissive towards me. Therefore, something's wrong with my wife. So now I need to go and fix her. And then that produces more feedback in reference to me not feeling completely myself anymore. And so then you have this downward spiral, all arising out of an interpretation that's arising out of personal unresolved stuff that just wasn't the right environment, and being put in a certain family who themselves had unresolved notions. And I simply withdrew some of that for myself, and I played out into the world, in the society, in the family, at home. And therefore, we have now therapies being born to address these small, unresolved things, which called a psychology, CBT, DBT, ACT. These are all wonderful methods to work with these pushed down pressures, personal pressures that make one choose what is to be done. Therefore, if I don't look at my personal pressures, I don't inquire them, and I don't listen to that feedback that the world is giving, then what's going to happen is, obliviously, an action will be put out into the world, a result will be received. Because I shut down my emotions, because my dad told me don't feel, emotions are for sissies, and all of these other things that we get told, I'm unable to feel the feedback from the world, and therefore I'm unable to take the right course of action. So all of this is working at one moment of interaction with something else, and so many things are going on in the background, and I think that I'm choosing in the highest and greatest good, but it is in the highest and greatest good that is not entirely consistent with what needs to be done. All the while, in the background, I cannot deny that something is off. But because the personal pressures are so high, they keep on shutting that program down. And so that program, eventually it starts to get so loud that the individual has no choice but to start to look into themselves and to start to listen to that voice. So it's not like you can keep that program, that pressure, that unresolved, unconscious down forever. It gets very loud eventually, and it has to be addressed entirely out of the virtue of it bringing so much pain in one's life. Okay, so
totally, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I totally agree with you. I think if you're constantly putting actions into the field and you're reinforcing behaviors and habits, then it's going to become a tendency, and they eventually go into the causal body, and it becomes a blueprint or the DNA of your next incarnation in life, right? That manifests itself in the subtle body, and then manifests itself in the physical, in the gross body by your actions. So that makes sense to me. But I think the thing that I'm still really inquiring into is the fact that I think the idea of karma, because it's based on adrishta phala, right? The unseen results of actions in lifetimes ago, because of this connection with time and space, that we can't really totally make a correlation that something that I did today, yes, it could, have an immediate result, or it could have a result 3 lifetimes later, or maybe something that's happening right now was a result of something 1 million lifetimes ago, because we can't really make that correlation empirically. That's then true. I think that karma is really, when it comes down to it, it's an issue of faith. It's really just believing that this is a worldview that I hold. I believe it. I can't empirically prove it, although there's inferences and, that I can, the cause and effect inference I can make connections to, but I can't really, scientifically prove it. And so that's why I'm asking what is good and what is bad, because what is good in one culture is actually seen bad in another culture. And it really does depend on time, space, and culture, because what was good 20 years ago is bad now, and what was bad 100 years ago when women couldn't vote is, and we have women voting now. And 100 years ago, you didn't have same-sex marriages, but now you do in California. So it changes over time, it changes over context, it changes over culture. And so because of all of these complex, interrelated, interconnected, aspects, it's hard to say how do you know what is good and what is bad?
Yeah,
And then if you're going to be judged by that from the causal body in your next life, well, I think it's really important that you know what is good and what is bad so that you can live a dharmic life, right? Because if you are accepting this on faith,
yeah,
that your next life is going to be based on this life, then it's important to know to what measure, to what yardstick you're going to be held against.
yeah, sure.
Does that make sense what I'm trying to share?
Yeah, it does. I've captured a few points. Culture is Ishwara's glory, to have so much differences. First of all, if we had one culture, then irony is it wouldn't be that glorious. There will be no reference points to enjoy colors and different cultures like African cultures and so on. Cultures are fine and they have their own customs, but in any culture at the same time, the question is, firstly, why am I born in that culture and not another culture? The second question or observation is, all cultures have a unity within them. They have that sense of unity, belonging, that protection. And that may be expressed in different ways, but that sense of unity and that love for each other within that group is always going to be the same. How it expresses, it's going to be different. And every culture further is going to have a number of distortions loaded onto itself. Because one notion can grow very quickly and it gets accepted and gets bought, and so it becomes normalized within the society, which we then call, well, this is my culture. It's my culture to eat a lot of meat. And you say, what's wrong with that? We had cultures of cannibals once upon a time, and that was normal for them. And you say, well, how can that be right? How can you eat other human beings? However, even within the cannibal culture, there is still the same underlying unity, the same underlying non-injury. Let me not hurt my fellow beings. I may see another culture as my enemy, but that's only to my own small thinking. That's only to our lack of education. That, hey, can we make things work? Can we make things? Can we negotiate something here? But still, within my own culture, there is the same underlining non-injury. We call this ahimsa. So no matter where you go, there is a unity and there's a common universal ethical value of reaching out, empathy, helping out your teammates. Any war in any culture, there's a injured teammate. I will go over there and try to help him out, right? What is it that makes me want to do that, and not say, hey, okay, you just die there and whatever. So it is prevalent in all cultures, but at the same time, everyone carries personal distortions. So now you have personal distortions, and you have distortions within a culture, and then distortions within a family, distortions within a community, distortions within a nation, distortions around the entire world. And now you try to make sense of all of this. Is that possible? Maybe that's too big of a question to even try to answer. The point is, there is distortion at every single level. And so, as you say, Elizabeth, what you can do, what we can do as an individual, is ask, where is my locus of control here? Is it really kind of inquiring, where does all come from? Why was I born in this place and not some other place? Why are some people, these are fun, these are interesting philosophical questions, but ultimately your locus of growth is focus onto oneself. What can I do in my community? What can I do in reference to my own distortions, and how can I clear them up? And who can I ask for help? So yes, there is faith there in reference to, I may be born and I may take these notions, onto the next life. We cannot prove that, but I would, also say, consider the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says very nicely to Arjuna, don't worry, this will carry over to the next life. Okay, if you want to take that solidly, that's up to you. If you want to take that as a belief, that is up to you. But here's the important part. Suppose you take out next birth. What does this do to your life right now? There's no birth afterwards. This is the last life. I can do whatever I want. I can cheat. I can, act inappropriately. There's no next life. So it takes away responsibility. It takes away humility. It takes away all of the qualities that you need to be successful in this world just by taking one single notion out that this is the end of that and there's nothing that comes after this life. So in this aspect, yes, faith, it's useful faith. It's not a faith that has no practicality. It's a practical faith that makes you responsible and changes the way you interact with other people, so that because you understand, am I here to get enmeshed? Are you here to get enmeshed with this world, with cultures and other people's distortions, or are you here to work out your stuff according to the scriptures, ascertain the knowledge, and just do the little bit that you can in your circle of influence? Right? What is it that you want to do? This is a potential given to everyone. And so the individual has to come to that decision. How do I wish to live my life? Do I wish to get enmeshed, entangled in different political things, situations, in other people's karmas, in other people's problems? Or do I want to look at my life and say, what can I do in reference to what I have? What is available to me? Where does my power lie? And how can I make that best of use and reach out to help those, which also at the same time gives me a sense of well-being? So that is always up to the individual. Yeah. But otherwise, trying to prove these things, sometimes it's unnecessary. I don't even do that. I just look at what is practical, what is useful, and what helps me to sustain that devotion and unity with my environment, and what keeps me grounded to the world. So it's a practical approach, or you can have a different approach if you want, a philosophical approach. It's up to you.
But I think what you're saying is really important too, that karma, if you do hold it in your worldview and you hold it as something that you believe in, it gives you a moral compass. It helps you to live a dharmic life. It helps you to think about, I think it helps you to have a great sense of humility and reverence towards the world and towards your interactions with others. So there is something very powerful about holding to this worldview as well, if you look at it on the other end, the positive end as well.
Around 16, I heard about karma, and instantly I said, yep, I understand this. I understand this. It's a lovely idea. And this was a blessing, because exactly what Elizabeth is saying, it made me understand that I cannot cheat and get away with it. There is a consequence for every result. Every time we step over someone's shoes or toes, or think we can sort of get our way, you cannot escape the consequences. And just that idea alone keeps one so accountable and tuned with their environment that they're just not willing to compromise what they know to be right, what they feel to be that needs to be done in this moment. So karma, again, can be taken two ways. One, as a philosophical debate, or as an extremely practical teaching that keeps you accountable. And so this is, again, how you want to look at it. So any teaching can be looked at however you wish to see. Or now you need to ask yourself, do I want this to be a product of disagreement or agreement? It's never about agreement or disagreement, but rather about what is it here that is worthy of considering, so it can help me grow in my life. How can I grow with this teaching? How can I incorporate it into my actions and prosper? Okay, so it keeps you very pure. It keeps the mind pure. And we said adhikari at the beginning of the book, What are the qualifications? Those Shamadhi, Shatka, Sampatihi, those sixfold virtues, and what Shama, Dhamma, right? Purity of the mind, focus, inquiring when I go wrong, then, reflecting. So all of this is part of also keeping you that accountable, giving you that accountability, because you understand I cannot cheat the system. It's not made that way because I didn't create the universe. The universe is set up in such a way that for every action, there's a corresponding result. And therefore, it's in it for me so that I don't get hurt to apply a kind of action that will give me a kind of result that I can just revel in and be grateful for.
I believe it'll be wonderful if we pass a moment in our lives to think how lucky and fortunate we are as human beings, as Krishna says in the Gita, Manushyanam Sahasreshu, Kastityavati Siddhe, and out of millions of opportunities, we are given that particular opportunity to be born as a human being, to be able to differentiate between what is good and bad, what is right and wrong, to be able to choose which way to go. And with the help of Guru Prasada, the Guru's help, the teacher's guiding words and hands, to be able to channelize your course journey forward. Probably, if not in this birth, in the next birth, many births waiting ahead for us. Is it right? With the enormity surrounding us.
Yes, yes.
Not only in this planet, in the millions of other planets and what makes up the cosmos, known cosmos.
Yes.
Maybe there are unknown cosmoses. How unimportant, how insignificant this one individual is. And how are we able to connect with the whole? And what is our right? What is the role of free will? And what is the effect of free will? All this, it's mind-baffling, isn't it? Mind-boggling, as we say.
Yeah, and thank God we have the scriptures, because they show the individual who doesn't have a guidance system. We get born without a user's manual. Did you know that? Hey, here's a user's manual. What's that called? It's called a food on a plate. Well, we need more than that. We need a user's manual to say, you see this individual that's born? Here's what you are. Here's what the way of conduct, we call this Dharma Shastra in Bhagavad Gita, the way of conduct, how to make the right decision. And how do I know if I'm making the right decision? Is it selfish? Is it selfless? And what is selfish and selfless, which I will talk about, by the way, because there's no such thing as selfless. And I will explain these two concepts. And we have to put in the right definition. And what is all of this for? Right. And what is this all? How do I make things, work in my life? And how do I confront challenges? So this is a user's manual, number one. But number two, we also have Moksha Shastra. Okay. So besides dealing with challenges and making the right decisions and discerning right and wrong, or appropriate, inappropriate, beyond all of that, what am I doing it all for? For the sake of moving over another challenge, or for something other than the challenges? Are the challenges just an incidental byproduct, or the challenges are meant to be, that's just the way of life? So we need to know that. And then the Shastra comes in and says, well, challenges are incidental, but they're all in the name of moksha. They're all in the name of becoming free from this need to confront more challenges in your life. And so we have this user's manual, and then to the extent that the maturity of the mind is able to grasp that is how much it will be motivated to follow that. If it just looks at these statements with a face value, and it says, well, it just looks at any statement, whatever you choose from the Gita, such as verse 7, chapter 7, verse 11, as Bao said last, some other session says, actions that do not oppose dharma. Now, what kind of interpretation am I giving that? And so you can say, well, according to my pressures, I'm going to apply actions that don't oppose to dharma, such as, cheating the system, finding loopholes in the system, going through, all sorts of kind of shortcuts, zigzags. Or if the mind is mature, it can see the depth of that statement and it can get feedback. And on the basis of that feedback, it says, wow, this is clearly not right. There's something off here. And then on the basis of that feedback, it takes the next course of action. And that way it corrects its ongoing mistakes. It's given a chance, you're given a chance to correct these ongoing mistakes. So yes, culture makes mistakes. Individuals make mistakes, but at the same time, you're also given a feedback system to get out of those mistakes. So as Bao is saying, how wonderful is that? So even if you are seemingly insignificant, small being in this vast scope of time, look at this. We are given challenges, but at the same time, equally so, you are given a perfect, infallible order that always shows you where you went off, where you derailed, and where are you staying on track. Despite our samskaras in the causal body, as Elizabeth was saying, that storehouse in her language, storehouse of samskaras, yes, they compel us. They compel us to use our free will that applies actions that are opposing dharma. But at the same time, you have that same free will to offload, to make a new decision every single time. That is also given to you. Often people say, well, how can I use my free will if my free will is always acting in the name of what I've done before? Well, that's true. But at the same time, it is not completely locked to what you have done before. There is some freedom to make a new choice that is also given to you. So like this, appreciating what is given, I can make a decision to get out of whatever hole I find myself in, whatever challenge I'm in, little by little, through thought, through intention, through reaching out, little by little, every individual is given a chance to uplift themselves and come out at the top. This is called a potential. Everyone's given this potential equally. Now, whether one chooses to collapse it or not is entirely up to you. God is not in a hurry because he is eternal. She is eternal. So if the individual wants to take lifetimes to solve a simple problem, which can actually be solved like that, just by changing your intention, just by changing your perception, literally like that. If the individual wants to take a whole lifetime to do that, that's up to them. They're just postponing the journey. If they want to say, no, it's going to happen next life, I'm going to get moksha next life, that is up to you. That's exactly what you will get. You will get it next life. If you are firm, you're committed, sincere, and say, okay, there is next life. Thank you that it's provided. But really, my intention, my commitment is this life. And at the same time, keeping one's humility. Because sometimes people say, wow, it's going to be, I'm not going to get born next life. Oh, really? You don't make the final shots here. Ishvara does. Just because someone says, I'm awareness, I'm consciousness, does that mean what? You're not going to get reborn? That's just borderline pride, arrogance now. So while saying, yes, I wish to end this journey because I see there's no real value in going to heaven, no real value going to Brahmaloka. There's no real value. It's just more limitation after limitation after limitation after limitation. I want limitlessness, that which has no boundaries. God itself is all I settle for, period, full stop. Sincerely making that statement, and therefore I will work to make it happen. By working to make it happen, we say God has Ishvara Anugraha, has graced you with this moksha. Ishvara has graced you with moksha. Why? Because of your own purushartha, your own self-effort has been put with sincerity. Because your self-effort has been put day by day, breath by breath, knowing what is the only thing that is worthy here in this world, and that is limitlessness itself, God alone. Knowing that, in the reference to that knowledge, I apply the right actions, what we're learning here. But still, I have no right to say, this is it, next life, that's the end of that. There's a possibility you may come back or not. Even if you're certain there's no way I'm coming back, it's not about making these statements. It's about humility. Even if you know I'm not coming back, even if you know that, that's not impressive. What's more impressive is even if you know you're not coming back, because you no doubts who you are. What's more impressive is to say, hey, just like my teacher Advayananda from Chinmaya Mission, I never forgot this. Where was I? We were doing Brahma Sutra Chatushtari, and he was getting out of the rickshaw to go inside the class. He said, I hope that I don't get reborn, And I said, why would a Swami be saying that? You're a Swami, you're the head teacher of Chinmaya Mission. You have so much knowledge. And he sincerely tells me, oh, I hope I don't get reborn, Andre. Because I said to him, why are you saying, because you know the knowledge, you clearly are very, intelligent. Why are you saying this? And he said, because, I hope that I don't come back. And that really struck me. You have this amazing teacher who speaks like this. That's sincerity. So it's not about saying, oh, I've got the knowledge and I'm not going to get reborn. Nobody wants to hear that. So it's not so black or white. I'm awareness. Oh, the hell with the world. It's not black or white. And thank God it's not black or white. Because we don't need enlightened idiots, enlightened idiots who insult the tradition with contradictory behavior. They know their nature and yet demonstrate arrogance in this world. What kind of an impression would that leave on seekers? Is it really worth it to do this? No, I'm going to go elsewhere now. So there is a responsibility for this Dharma Shastra, proper conduct in the light of self-knowledge, proper conduct. Lorena?
I think that's some of the problem would be there's a lot of so-called enlightened idiots claiming to be enlightened and taking the focus off the actual truth. And then it sort of adds to that pratibhasika, of thinking that, okay, I think I know this, but then, if you get the wrong guru, for example, that's not actually teaching you the fundamental, like Shastra Pramana, then you can go off onto a different direction. So there's a lot of that sort of around as well, which can make it confusing for people that are seeking the truth,
It's very confusing because you're in this huge pool of options and not knowing any better. Think about how hard it is for someone that's just getting into it. They're presented with beards, with beautiful, manes and white clothing and, someone that looks wise. So the first thing the mind's going to do, or the body is going to identify with another body, because that's where the eye is placed. So if eye is placed in the body, then I want another body that looks wise. And therefore you go to that. And then some maturity happens, you make some mistakes, you see this is not really what I want, and then you move elsewhere. And then you go into, some aura cleaning, and then they will put some stones, ruby, they will put some different kinds of stones on you, on your body, and then they will, wave their hands over you, and due to placebo effect, you will feel like something's happening, right? And then it will take demon extraction, right? Whatever, right? And then we go, wow, I'm now finally pure. I'm one with myself. And then quickly, a new sense of incompleteness comes up tomorrow. And you say, no, I need a new cleaning. I need a new kind of modality done onto myself, done onto my body. And so we look for things that complement where our eye is placed. If my eye is placed in the body, then of course I want someone to play me music, or I want to do dance, or I want to have stones put on my body. If my eye is placed in the mind, then of course I want to do different forms of whatever they have nowadays, like psychology, which is okay, right? Or different modalities in that nature. So eventually you have to plow through all of this and understand and come to the point where you say, this doesn't contradict my experience. I can't deny it. It doesn't exclude anything. It just put things in the right place. It doesn't call things out, this is useless. It doesn't do that. It just shows you why things are the way they are. It doesn't dismiss things. It just helps you put things in the right perspective. Take those pratibhasika, those subjectivities out, so you can see, There's nothing wrong. Okay, they have their little tantra orgies. This was huge in the 70s, right? Freedom of expression. And so they have these whole kind of bodily fluid exchanges. And you say, well, this was a stage that belonged to those people, right? And who am I to say who they are, right? That's what they needed to realize there's something more than that, right? It's a stepping stone. Everything's a stepping stone. And so eventually you come to the teaching and you come to, as my first teacher, James, said, there's nothing after Advaita Vedanta. There's no higher path than Advaita Vedanta. If one thinks they come to Vedanta and there's something higher, my teacher James said very well, then you might as well just ride out this incarnation in sense gratification and wait for the next life and start again. Because truly there's nothing after Advaita Vedanta.
I think, may I cut in? The biggest advantage of Vedanta, where Indian civilization, Indian culture gets born into it naturally, and the Western people, Western culture stumbles upon it sometime in their life, luckily, like you, for example. The tradition of, including myself, we have all gone through guru shopping some stage in our lives.
Right.
But eventually, at the end, you come to what Shankara says, Shrotriya. That means selecting a teacher who is steeped in the scriptures, especially the Shastras, not the Puranas, not the epics, not the stories, mom and pop stories, but a guru who entirely follows a lineage and a tradition, like you, for example. One's punyam gets accumulated a step and not small.
Yeah, and amongst that, see, if Vedanta, it requires a disposition that is, it's gone through the pains, it fell down, it got up, it saw certain limitations of life, but at the same time, it's not a dismissive disposition. It doesn't dismiss things. All of that to come to a point where you're able to sit and see the value in the teaching, that says a lot about how far you have come. It says a lot about your own punyam. Right? It says a lot about the kind of things that you went through to come to this place of Advaita. And now, of course, this is not what do they call it? This is not to be something that you're proud for. I'm proud to be in Advaita. I'm not saying this at all. It just helps you see that, like you went through a lot of guru shopping, a lot of teacher shopping, a lot of techniques shopping, and you were able to plow through that and come to a certain resolution to say, okay, there's something here that is worthy of figuring out, and I'm going to stay and figure it out. Okay, so that alone is a product of your qualifications. And that's why we say at the beginning, adhikari is the one with qualifications, the right kind of mind. Once I had a woman, she was 78, and she was a psychologist. She had Gestalt therapy, neuro-linguistic programming, CBT, DBT, ACT. The list of qualifications was like this long, okay? She walked out of my class and she says, Andre, you are chit-chat. You're just chit-chat, She's a Muji type. This is chit-chat ananda. It's all coming from, it's too intellectual. This is very common objection in Vedanta. This is too intellectual. You need to come from heart, and totally dismiss the whole teaching. Didn't stay throughout the entire course, left on the fourth day. And look at this, so many qualifications, right? And you would think, my God, this woman is so advanced. She's so advanced. She's worked with clients And yet, I have never received so much resistance in my life from this woman. You would think she's old, she's experienced, she has the right maturity, and yet she couldn't see the teaching. I mean, this is what I value about India. This is a culture that values knowledge, not go into your heart, feel the love. This is fine, but see, it's not just that. There's so much more than putting this into the heart. There is a concreteness to it that's ascertained. This is a wonderful culture, Adi Shankara. Oh, just go into your heart, This is too much intellectual. Most common objection you receive. So it doesn't mean just because someone is old and they have worked with clients and they're an expert in psychology and they have a long list of qualifications that they are really qualified for this, which I'm not surprised. We have different types, and there's always a teacher for them. Lorena.
Does that mean that that person is not, they're still expecting some kind of feeling to come out of the teaching rather than just looking at the truth? They're still expecting some kind of experience to be a result of some kind of teaching, instead of just looking at the factual truth of what the scriptures are saying.
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. I mean, she's a Ramana Maharishi type, Moji type, like these general speakers. They don't use Sanskrit. They don't use concepts. I don't know if she understood the knowledge. I don't know where she's coming from. But there is a certain value you have, respect for a teacher. And just to walk out and then to rudely brush them off, chit chat Ananda without even saying, hi, not even that. Right? None of that kind of no ethics in communication. There's so much that gets revealed just by how you send an email to someone, or how you walk out and how you say goodbye. And I said to her, goodbye and all this. Oh, namaskara. It's like, yeah, goodbye. It's like there's no culture there. So many things reveal so many things about a person. How you say namaskara. How do you respond when things are awkward? That's a big test. Can you retain your composure when things are awkward? It's easy to have that when everything's okay. But how about in this situation where there's clearly so much resistance and dislike towards me? And still, I came up to her and said, okay, may your journey be safe in India. And she didn't even look at me. She just said, okay, goodbye. And she went with a taxi, So see, small things like this say a lot about the person. Okay, so qualifications. Okay, qualifications. They're not black or white. You just don't know who's qualified, who's not qualified. All you can know is, are you qualified? Are you looking at this with sincerity, with a beginner's mind, with a curiosity, or nope, that is not my style. They're in their head, they're in their heart. Goodbye, next, right? So quickly to dismiss. So this is again the person's choice, and we can't do anything about it. But what you can do is focus on the next section here, causal body. Okay, I just want to say a few more words here. So sat asadbhyam anirvachaniyam. Is it real or is it unreal? Because we said the causal body is ignorance. So what's the nature of ignorance? That's the question being posed. Is this ignorance real or is it unreal? And the verse says it cannot be real, because if it's real, ignorance cannot go away. But that is contradictory. I can discover and remove ignorance. Is it unreal? It cannot say that it's unreal, because I clearly have ignorance. Therefore, I cannot dismiss it. So it's neither real, sat, nor is it unreal, asat. Another word for asat we said is tucham. What is ignorance if it's neither real nor unreal? One more word. Oh?
Yeah, I mean, let me take you back to 2 sessions earlier, where you consciously introduced that wonderful word called undifferentiated soup.
Right.
Okay, I believe there is some kind of connection, correct me if I'm wrong, between the undifferentiated soup state and the avidya or the ignorance mentioned in the causal body. So, yeah. So the fact that human birth is given to you or just happened to you because you're given a chance to correct yourself from this undifferentiated soup condition, to be able to differentiate between Sat and Asat, right and wrong, good and bad, evil, right kind of situations, and then go back to the same soup, or you go to a different level of soup where it slightly gets purified or distilled.
Okay.
Am I right?
Yeah, let me put things into context. When I said undifferentiated soup, what I mean is specifically causes which are unmanifest. They have not yet fructified. Punya papam has not fructified. That unfructified punya papam equals undifferentiated soup, okay? This undifferentiated soup manifests your physical body. What you do with the fact that the body has been manifested, that is up to you. You can either collapse freedom, moksha, or you can collapse seeking for things in the world. Yeah. So now, but when it comes to Sat and Asat, I asked the question specifically, if ignorance is neither real, because if it was real, it would never go away. If ignorance was unreal, that's not possible because it's clearly obvious that I don't know. So then what is ignorance? Ignorance is mithya, okay? Yep, this is a third word. We know mithya. It is dependent on what? A conscious subject. In the presence of the conscious one, there is knowledge that I don't know what is the nature of this conscious person. Now, you said prarabdha karma, Nagesh. Yeah, so I just want to, prarabdha karma we'll cover later, but prarabdha karma is whatever you're assigned for this life. Undifferentiated soup assigned for this life is called prarabdha karma, okay? What is prarabdha karma? That karma which compels you to go through certain situations, to live out your life, and when the ending of this karma comes, we call this the ending, which is called physical death. For now, I will cover this later. Let's not go into prarabdha karma now. Yeah. And when does this ignorance begin? We said it cannot begin from nothing. Look at this. Why can ignorance not begin from nothing? Because ignorance is always in reference to something. I don't know something. And yet, something and nothing, they're opposing in nature. So you cannot say ignorance came from nothing because ignorance is always in reference to something. I don't know Spanish. Spanish is a something. So you can't say ignorance came from nothing. And you also cannot say that ignorance came from knowledge. Because what does knowledge mean? It means absence of ignorance. Where there is knowledge, there is no ignorance. Therefore, ignorance cannot come from nothing. It cannot come from knowledge. So then what's the only other choice? Go on.
It's dependent on Sat.
It's dependent on you, on the conscious being. But my question was specifically, if ignorance cannot come, then what's the only other choice? It's beginningless. It's beginningless. That means it never began at some point in time. It was always there. If ignorance is called the causal body, and the causal body gives birth to the subtle and the physical body, then by definition, that which is beginningless is none other than you. You, the jiva, was here since beginningless time, because you, the jiva, with the physical and the subtle body, came from the causal body. Causal body is called ignorance. Ignorance cannot come in time. The only option is it never came. It was always there. Therefore, who was always here? I was. This individual called the Jiva. This living entity who always came with a physical body, with a subtle body, to get stuff in this world. And then just one lifetime, it says, okay, I have gotten this, gotten that, gotten this, gotten that. Now what? I'm still an insecure little human being. There's something, existential angst is still thriving, loud and clear. Now, let me go and address this existential angst. And therefore, you then find a second boom in life, which is called a teacher, who is a Shrotriya, as Bao said, who then expounds the vision and moves you out of the causal body. Or better say, moves the causal body out of you. And therefore, this disassociation from the causal body frees I, Brahman, from that which gives me a new physical body. Because we also said the logic, go back to the previous session, why you're not the causal body. I'm not going to say, does someone remember? I gave 2 reasons why you're not the causal body.
One is that the causal body is the result of the subtle body and the physical body, which we already established by logic isn't I.
Yeah, excellent. So David is saying that the causal body gives birth to the physical and subtle body. The physical and subtle body does the actions. Yes, Nagesh?
And also you're aware that you're ignorant, so you can't be that which you're aware of.
Exactly. You cannot be what you know of. But going back to the first one, the physical and the subtle body does the actions. Whose physical and subtle body? The one that's sitting on this chair now. So if this person sitting in this chair now goes and gives $2 million to charity, obviously there will be some punyam there, no doubt. Where would that punyam go? It will go to
Causal body.
the causal body, which is a product of the physical and the subtle body's actions of giving the money. But we have established last week that the physical and the subtle body cannot be I, because in the presence of these ongoing changes, ongoing sustenances, ongoing modifications, there is a background of consciousness, the invariable, the present ever available one, the present true ever available entity, I, who doesn't move at all, who doesn't change at all, who simply witnesses whatever comes and goes, witnesses the hunger, witnesses the scars, witnesses the healing, witnesses the back, witnesses the headache, witnesses the going away from the headache, witnesses the body growing, witnesses the body getting older, witnesses the freckles coming on, witnesses the beauty fading away, witnesses the beauty coming back for some strange reason, witnesses the mind going through confusion, witnesses the mind coming to a light comes on, witnesses knowledge taking place of a certain topic, subject matter, witnesses understandings, witnesses kind of a doubt, witnesses a flash of insight. Unchanging, invariable presence that is there before anything comes, while it lasts, and continues exactly the same while all of it is over, only to accommodate a next modification of experience, which is nothing but a product of your physical and subtle body. Yeah, but this is intellectual, I don't feel it. Objection, common objection. It's okay. Any knowledge ends up being intellectual at first. The more it's ruminated upon, thought about, the more it becomes a spontaneous, effortless knowing. That's all. So it doesn't matter that it's all intellectual at the start. In fact, if you keep saying it's intellectual, it just means that it's not thought of enough. It's not meditated upon enough. That's all. It's just an indicator. It needs to be inquired. I've inquired about this for hours, for years. Any person who's decently understood the vision has inquired for hours, for years. It's not about hearing it once. There's an effort there.
Back to your metaphor of undifferentiated soup, which keeps on, emphasizing its importance to me as time goes on. You mentioned about, let's agree that there such a kind of soup exists somewhere in the Mahat or whatever. And then imagine the soup to be more solid than liquid, than fluid. Then you, out of that soup, jiva gets born, and then the jiva goes through all the experiences, discovers the teacher at the end, and then it goes back to the causal body, but to a different constituency of soup, a little bit more refined soup. That is where Vedanta explains it away by saying various lokas above this level of soup, and going above, sort of getting sublimated from stage A to stage B, and then onwards to C, D, whatever, right? That's where I remember writing a poem myself called Algorithm of Immortality. And I started with Einstein's famous line, nothing happens until someone moves. So it's an ocean of solidified stuff.
Yeah.
This undifferentiated soup, I would like to imagine that way, where out of that soup, as a particle, you gets dropped into this world, and then subject yourself to various kinds of plethora of experiences, a spectrum of experiences, learning, culture, education, all that. And finally, you get a chance to come into contact with a Vedantic teacher, and then who shows you a way. I'm not saying the best way or whatever,
Yeah.
because the best is yet to be, probably. Then you get elevated or sublimated a few notches above that dark soup. Am I right?
Yeah, you see, the question here is not, what kind of soup do I have? What kind of punya papam do I have in my causal body? Why are we going through this inquiry?
For moksha, freedom of all that.
You see, I understand. So this is true. The soup, punya papam, as long as there is identity with my causal body, I will receive a physical body. I will receive a subtle body. The inquiry here is you're much more than all of this. You're much more than this small entity. We are showing you where your locus of error is. Where do you keep on putting yourself in? Where is your eye? Is my eye in some soup, in some causal body, in some physical, subtle body? Well, that has to be looked into. That's what Vedanta's focus is. Simply just putting things in the right place. You see, this soup, this causal body is what, how do you know that you're not the causal body? Because the causal body is dictated as ignorance. I don't know. Simple. I don't know what. It doesn't matter. I just don't know. I don't know Spanish. I don't know, how does a leaf turn, go through seasons. I don't know. I don't know my nature. That's all it is. The fact that I don't know implies the subject is not covered by ignorance. Implies that you are not covered by ignorance. Shows that just the fact that objects of not knowing are in your awareness, they come in your awareness, shows that awareness is free of those objects which are yet to be discovered. It shows that awareness, you, the awareful one, the conscious one, are not subject to ignorance, are not subject to the causal body.
We can safely conclude by understanding that the undifferentiated soup is not inert, but full of possibilities and full of life, full of, let's say, unsprouted vasanas, unsprouted metabolic activity included, as an ocean of possibilities, right?
No, wait. Undifferentiated soup, that metaphor specifically means punya papa mixture. Results which are a product of my mistakes, results which are a product of my good actions put into the world. That's it. All that means it is going to fructify and give a new body. That's all this term means. Please, let's not now put it into endless possibilities. Endless possibilities are a different topic, which we will cover some other time. This is Ishwara's order.
Objects within time and space. There's still objects within time and space, the cause and effect.
Yeah, it's, causal body is is the cause which produces an effect of the physical and the subtle body. And so I am neither the cause or the effect. This is the idea. This is what's being communicated. Okay. And because it produces this subtle and physical body, Sat Swarupa Ajnanam, for that reason, Sat Swarupa Ajnanam, that means it covers or causes ignorance of one's Sat. Okay, Sat Swarupa means nature. Whose nature? Your nature, which is aware, limitless consciousness, Sat Chit Ananda, existence, awareness without any boundaries, which is free of time, free of space. That one is covered or seemingly covered by their truth. Why? Because it produces a physical body. Physical body goes into the world and it starts to consume experiences, and therefore it never comes to this knowledge. Okay? And because it is that which covers your nature, the only interest in Vedanta is to put it in its right place. It is not I. Next week, we will go to the second set and talk about the three states. Okay, we will see that, the three states serve a function, but we will see through logic how I can either be the three states, how I am free of the waking, the waker, the dreamer, and the deep sleeper. So all we're doing here is freeing ourselves from where our I is being put into. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnameva Avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.